In this part of the course, we now turn our attention to how we might design learning contexts to help someone learn a skill. But before we go too much further, I want you to think about a skill that you have and reflect on how you learned it. Identify something that you're good at and remember back to some of the lessons and practices that helped you learn that skill. When I think about my movement abilities and skills, I can see that many factors were involved, such as my age, physical abilities, the activities that I was exposed to, the motivation involved, and whether my friends also played. Also important was the amount of fun I had, the coaching and feedback I received, and the amount of success I experienced. At an early age, my family were important. I have 2 older brothers, so copying them and trying to be like them became an important motivating factor. Another important factor was being able to play. We loved to get outside and play. At school, I remember playing on the monkey bars and playing lots of bull rush and bull tag. We invented games and we played a lot. We played our own games as well as organised sport. I was a typical young Kiwi and played a lot of sport. Most of that, though, was related to my family, interests and culture. For example, I played rugby, soccer, tennis and also did a lot of sailing. My family were not into swimming or league or volleyball or softball, so I never got to play them. For some reason, when I was 12, I was attracted to basketball, and this eventually ended up being my main sport. Once again, playing was important, and I remember as a secondary school student spending nearly every day after school playing endless games of basketball with my friends in the gym. Once the PE teacher got cross with us because we'd stayed in the gym till 8 PM and the police were called to see why the lights were still on. While we played a lot, this is not meant to say that coaching was not important. I had some really good coaches who were able to help craft my skills and give good advice and help me become a better sports person. I also had some coaches who weren't so good, or at least I would probably question now whether their techniques were good. In this respect, I want to briefly focus on 3 things that some of my coaches did, and this will become important later in the course. See if these experiences are similar to yours. Firstly, one of my tennis coaches was very keen on breaking down each skill into its component parts. For example, I remember him saying that the forehand was composed of 4 parts. The backswing, then you step into the ball, make contact in front of the body, and follow through over your opposite shoulder. We would then stand in front of him practicing each of these movements individually. He would check the technique, and then we would link them together into a sequence. The important thing for him was that we learnt the correct technique before we went onto the court and started hitting the ball. Secondly, one of my soccer coaches had a very specific way that he ran practices. We would begin with a warm-up, then we would do lots of drills. He had lots of drills for passing, shooting and dribbling. He would set up the field in a very organised way with cones, specifying where we were supposed to line up and where we were supposed to kick the ball to, or dribble the ball around lots of cones or do something like that. There wasn't much talk about our last game, and if there was, his evaluation was generally that we didn't try hard enough. The solution was more drilling. However, at the end of practice, he divided everyone into 2 teams and we played a game for the last 10 minutes. That was each practice. Warm-up, drills, and a game at the end. Thirdly, to improve my basketball, I started to go to the gym by myself and practice shooting. Each day I'd take between maybe 500 to 1,000 shots. The objective was to learn through repetition, since the old saying at that time was practice makes perfect, and I was determined to get more practice than anyone else. I'd begin with free throws, taking 100. I would then concentrate on making each shot the same and ensure good technique. I then would shoot from different positions on the floor, maybe from 50 from this spot, then move to another spot. For me, it was about practice, practice, practice. So these are a few of my memories. They all add in some way to my learning a skill. Some were probably good, and some we would probably challenge nowadays as whether they're effective. Before you go on to the next lesson, go to the discussion page and jot down a brief memory of how you learned a skill. What did your teacher or coach do to help you learn? Were your experiences similar to mine? When you've done this, click on the link at the bottom of the page and go to the next lesson.